So we build desktop 3D printers. You can see them out there. And what I want to talk about a little bit today is how that fits in, how we're looking at the ecosystem that is San Leandro, and what we're doing here in the city as well. So I hope that's interesting to you guys. Yes, a little bit? Yeah, sweet. All right, let's go for it. So we started out in a hackerspace. This is Noisebridge, which is in San Francisco. Folks were talking about Tech Shop earlier today. Tech Shop's a great space. If you haven't been there, you should check it out. I think it was described by one of the earlier speakers as essentially a gym for hackers. I always think about it as a fitness center for geeks. And the reason for that is that's really what it is. That's Andrew, our CTO, up in the corner of that picture, working on literally the first 3D printer that he ever got his hands on. And as you can see, it was basically just a plywood mix of cables and machine parts. And over the last couple of years, we've kind of upgraded a little bit. This is our 2013 model, the plywood version over there. And already when we started building these machines, we realized something interesting, which was people were starting to use our 3D printers in new and unique ways. And in fact, I had a little thought of listening to Greg just now as well. All the things that he's talking about in terms of ecosystem and about education and development are really quite deep to my heart as well. You know, I strongly believe that 3D printers is a tool for moving kids and moving education from this paradigm of building employees and into building a paradigm of building entrepreneurs. Because with a 3D printer, the cost of failure is so much lower. It's a lot easier to fail. Trust me, we do it all the time. So what you're looking at here is actually Henry in the middle of the picture there. He prototyped a little speaker for his iPhone that he calls the Annoyinator. And it's very annoying because it lets you basically blast out sound through your iPhone much louder than you normally could. And together with his dad there in the Hawaiian shirt in the background, Caleb, they actually did a Kickstarter campaign and ran a successful Kickstarter. And the thing that, so now there are a lot more annoying things out in the world, yay! And so but the really interesting thing here for me is, and what's very fascinating, is that we're seeing our users, about 1 in 10 of our customers, starting to create their own companies or build their own businesses using our 3D printer as their primary tool. Why is that? And what kind of things are they building? Well, the Annoyinator is one case, but here's another one. This is Emotive, which is a company using 3D printing for essentially prototypes for kids, or rather prosthetics for kids. So for kids that are born without a hand, having a prototype can be quite expensive because you're constantly growing as a kid, and so you need new hands all the time. And they can also be a little bit awkward and very, very pricey. A prosthetic hand can be upwards to $15,000. These are $30 to make. And so they're a much more available resource for everything from development countries where you might not have the price to be able to pay for full prosthetic, or for kids here in the US, the other cool thing is you can, because it's a 3D printed part, modify it. And so instead of being embarrassed about the fact that you don't have a hand, you can turn it into a Wolverine, set of claws. So by being able to give them the capability to customize their own prosthetics and customize their own setup, suddenly folks are a lot more happy about being able to use that tool. So that's something that 3D printers are being used to. This is another case. This is our chief design officer, Brian Allen's work. He created the 3D printed wool using the 3D printers that are out there. So desktop 3D printer, about 10,000 hours of 3D printing gives you a wool like that. Absolutely useless, right? But it is a very, very interesting case because that wool reflects light and sound in very unique ways. And so what's happening is that as a design tool, 3D printers are really coming online, and that's what we saw our customers do. But then the thing that we hadn't predicted, but that we've been working on now over the last 7 months, is that not only were they using it as a design tool, but their friends and their friends' friends were coming to our customers and saying, hey, I want one too. And so suddenly they're having to print tens and then hundreds and thousands of the same kind of part, and then they have a business. And that's kind of the same thing that Brian's doing there. He's made a single Lego brick that he can turn into a wall, and then he prints hundreds and hundreds of them in order to build big walls. But then you need kind of a different system. So that's what we've been working on the last 7 months, and this is the result. So what we've actually come up with now is we came out just last week with a white paper showing that we can outcompete injection molding in the sub-1,000 unit production range. This is very important to ecosystems, and I'll tell you exactly why. It used to be the case that if you are a manufacturing company or if you are an individual designer with an idea, then you'd have to essentially take a leap of faith from the prototype to full manufacturing, because the price of a mold or a setup that can manufacture your goods is really quite high. So you're looking at, for a single small plastic part, it could be literally thousands and thousands of dollars just to get the metal molds that you need in order to make, say, a couple of thousand of them. So the problem that you get there is you have to get it right the first time. And not only that, but you have to make thousands of them before it can really pay for itself. So you can imagine if you're an early grade designer, then the cost of failure is really, really high. And that's what 3D printing is changing. So by using a print farm, you don't have to take that risk. You can do a small batch of, say, 600 parts or 1,000 parts, and you're still being able to modify and change things as you go. And so for an innovation system or an incubator, if you're an early stage startup or you're someone with an idea and you want to get them into effect, you don't have to invest thousands of dollars anymore. You can just print on demand. And that's the real innovation here. So we have a local hero here. I don't know if any of you guys recognize him. He lives just down the street on Davis. Dan Walters. And he's one of our cases. So he actually used our parts for his local manufacturing business. 3D printed a small plastic divider that divides his two-part resin component, which he uses for aerospace, and it saved him lots of money. You can ask him; he'll confirm my story. And that's Brian again. I want to kind of highlight the garden gnome there. That's my dad. He turned 70 this year. I scanned his face when he wasn't looking, and then turned him into a plastic garden gnome for his 70th birthday. It's very easy to do, and this is again. Coming back to the ecosystem of innovation, the barrier for going from idea to object has to go down. The easier you can make it for people to go from idea to object, the more ideas become realized. And I'd like to liken it a little bit to sort of pre-Google, pre-smartphones. So if you're sitting on a bus 10, 15 years ago and you have a question, what do you do? Well, you can turn to the person next to you and you can ask them their question, but they might not know the answer. Or you can try to remember it for when you get home, and then you have to look it up somewhere. These days, if you're sitting on a bus or in a cab or somewhere and you have a question, you just pull up your smartphone and you Google the question, right? Instant gratification right there. Well, we're not there with physical objects yet or with ideas. So if you are sitting here in the audience and you have an idea right now, it's very hard for you to make that a physical solution, right? But where we're going and where the future is really pushing us is being able to give you those tools on your phone, in your hand, in your local manufacturing hub or tech shop, so that you can go from idea to object in as few steps as possible. And not only that, what we're pushing for is, because just being able to come up with a prototype isn't enough. If you want to push a solution, you need to be able to give it to more than one person. So that's where the manufacturing component comes in. Bless you. Yeah. And that's where it really gets interesting for me, because if we can help you design something, print it, and then go directly into manufacturing without actually having to learn any new tools or do anything more than just work from your phone or through a local system, then I think we've succeeded in something very unique. And we've succeeded in giving you, in your pocket or locally, the tools that you need in order to come up with your own ideas. And that is incredibly powerful. So I'm going to skip these data things. This is kind of fun and interesting. So it's all because of connection to the internet, right? So without any connection to the internet, everything fails. And I love that this is, if you're familiar with the unable to connect to the internet thing, I always love it with the little T-Rex lack of arms there. And in many ways, that kind of feels like where we're at in 3D printing right now as well. You know, like the technology is there, but you just can't quite reach it. And so we're working on extending the arms a little bit. But we're here locally in San Leandro. I'd really like to sort of encourage you to come by, because that's the printer. I'll skip that. I'll skip that too. This is the important part. So getting back to building an ecosystem. I'm a small startup. Like we have few resources. We were 4 people when we started out in January 2012. And we were just operating out of, you know, what we could do with our own pocket money that our wives gave us. We have nice wives. And, you know, a little bit of know-how. And so we've gone from that to now having literally the world's largest 3D technology cluster right here in San Leandro in less than 2.5 years. And in fact, the world's largest part just happened in the last 6 months. So, and yes, it's cool. And the reason we've been able to do that is because we've simply connected the dots, you know. And it's thanks to Debbie and Costa sitting here front row, because she's super supportive, and I want to give her a little hand for that. And the city of San Leandro and everyone here who has been very welcoming in giving us space and giving us the opportunity to do it. But the big part of it as well is people want to work together. You know, and you just have to give them the opportunity. And so my bet, I don't have $1 billion, right? I simply don't. I wish I did, but there you go. And so our bet was, when going into a big industry like 3D printing, which has huge players, you know, HP is coming in 2016. You've got 2 $6 billion companies in the space already that have been there for 30 years. There are 200 startups now in the 3D printing space, just over the last 18 months. Right? It's a massive, it grows by 40%, the market grows by 40% year over year. If we aren't growing faster than 40% every year, we aren't even keeping up. Okay? That's the space we're in. So that's why it's, that's why it's important to connect. And we've done it simply by asking people to join us. That was really all we had to do, is just like, join us. And Derek's like, yeah, I'll join you. And so now we've got 11 companies in the space here in San Leandro and in the gate, and they're all working together to create a seamless ecosystem of 3D printing products and services. And we've got everything from the scanners, SoundFit out there, to the materials, to the 3D object depositories through PinShape. We have, you know, 3D printing services through Mind to Matter, and it's all coming together again, to make it as easy as possible for you and everyone else to go from idea to prototype and from prototype to market. And all we had to do was ask. And so, you know, if I can leave you with one thing, it's how important just asking is. And, you know, I really love one of your final slides, which was it's about going from sort of the ego-driven system to, what was the other word you used? Eco, there you go. Because that's really what it's about for us. And there is actually a very, very green technology basis to 3D printing as well. Because I want you to think about this. Right now, every time something that you buy in one of your local shops is made out of plastic, it was most likely made in China. About 48% of the world's injection molding market exists in China, right? Because they're very good at it. But that means that plastic, the most popular plastic is PLA. It's a cornstarch-based plastic. That's basically corn being shipped from the US or elsewhere over to China, being turned into plastic, and then shipped back in some sort of form, right? That's an immensely energy-intensive process. And then what we're doing is we're working with local manufacturers. We have a local filament production facility just being moved into the space now. And we're producing bioplastics that can be recycled using some new systems that we're building. And then you can print locally. And a lot of people are referring it to 3D printing as kind of like China on your desktop. It's not, it really isn't. China's a very big country. You can't fit it on your desktop. But also, it's not a magic box, it's a tool like any other tool. But it is a very, very powerful system when it comes to the recycling of materials and the local energy savings of not having to ship things halfway around the world. And the best part of it is you don't have to gamble. You don't have to make 100,000 plastic things and hope that you sell 80 of them in order to break evil, excuse me. So the Freudian slip, break even. All you have to do is print exactly as many as you have customers. So that's kind of the idea. Oh, I've timed out. That's a good tip that I should probably stop talking. So that's kind of like the ecosystem right there. I'd encourage any of you to swing by. I'd love to show you our space. And thank you for listening.